I tried to get the hardest badge.
Top 5 hardest badges.
This popular Roblox game has a badge that historically no player has ever got before.
Have you ever wondered what the hardest badges are in Roblox?
It's no secret that this website is home to some of the most challenging achievements out of any video game ever made. There are brutally hard obbies and puzzles that take weeks to solve. But of all these things, what is actually the hardest badge on Roblox? This game has the answer. It's called Ultra Hard Badges List and contains 113 of the hardest badges on this website. And for the record, out of 113 I only have one. The badges in this game are some of the most unique, grindy and challenging achievements anyone can get on Roblox. You've got some of your regular stuff like puzzles and obbies, but then you've got collecting 10 quadrillion pollen, incredibly difficult boss fights, beating the world's hardest game definitely, beating golf in 0 strokes, golfing for 6 hours, perfect every single level in a just have fun game, obtain a 1 in 1 billion chance to item, collect every single fish, collect every blue coin, beat the super hard platformer level in under 2 minutes, complete a game of puzzles that only 20 people have ever solved, complete 50 endings in a row without messing up once, walking for 6 hours straight, obtaining 120,000 legacy badges, completing 5 no difficulty towers, and completing 70 badgers. The only badge I've obtained on this list so far is from Randomly Generated Droids, a roguelike fighting game which uses RNG mechanics and is surprisingly not just Souls RNG but good. To get the badge in this game you need to beat the hardest difficulty, Ascension 15, twice. The Ascension levels or 8 levels are essentially the same as the Eclipse system in Risk of Rain 2. The game increases in difficulty for each level and there are 15 of them in total. You need to beat the previous level to unlock the next one. Beating the next level unlocks the Transcendent class, which is probably the most overpowered character in the game on normal difficulty. This badge personally took me around 50 hours in total, and is only rated 1 star with a maximum of 5. I think it's a pretty good place to start if you want to get one of these badges. Either this or 6.0 Hero, the community agreed easiest badge on the list. To get this, you need to survive 100 rounds on 6.0 difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty in the game. It seems simple enough though, because it's essentially just a grind fest. It's not a difficult game, especially with the meta perks. Let's talk about something a little harder. This is how did we get here from the game.
In 1 minute, you will explode.
If you watch Theodoric, you've probably seen this game before. It's a puzzles ending game inspired by the easiest game in Roblox, where you had to run around the map and find secrets where your bomb inevitably explodes in 1 minute. So what's the deal with this badge? To get it, you need to complete every single ending without messing up once. That is a monumentally difficult task, as some of these endings require a lot of precision and precise knowledge of the game. If you mess up once, you have to completely restart from the beginning. The badge only has 2 owners in over a month of its existence. Another really interesting badge is the one for obtaining 120,000 legacy badges. If you don't know what that means, it's basically 120,000 badges from back when they used to charge money to create one. This is one of the most time-consuming tasks you can take in modern Roblox due to the badge limit rate, making it only possible to receive 85 badges a minute, but in reality most of the time it's more like 50. For reference, there are 30 people in existence with 150k legacy badges or more. Even getting close to 100k is super difficult in modern times, especially since the closure of all Manners games. This is probably the badge that requires the most commitment outside of the 120k legacy badges. To get this, you need to complete 70 badges and ship the guy who won 1 million Robux, okay? His Badger Hub. The Badger is a long list of badges to collect from various difficult games, often rewarding a prize like free UGC upon completion. Shapif's game tracks your completion of a list of a ton of different badgers, and if you manage to complete 70 of these badgers, you will get this badge. Badgers are often pretty difficult to complete and can have upwards of 100 badges in their chain. Only one person to this day has ever completed 70 badgers. This game also gets bonus points because it includes my game. Now, before I go on to talk about the absolute hardest badges on this list, I want to quickly go for a quickfire round of some of the more interesting badges of lower difficulties. Here's an incredibly difficult zipline obby that uses Roblox's broken engine to progress. You got to beat this one start to finish deathless for the badge. To get this badge, you need to work together with 25 people to cross a rainbow bridge. You can pick a colour and that is the only colour you're able to stand on. All other colours will kill you. You need to use other people's heads to progress. Also, every single player needs to make it to the end to get the badge, though if one of you guys die then everyone has to restart from the beginning. There are 3 badges for 100% in Yuminuki fan games and all 3 of these games are super cool and unique. One of these is literally my favourite Roblox game of all time. This is Hollow Imitation from Illusion. A super sick boss fight, which is well overdue a mention from me in a video. I think this might be one of the hardest boss fights I've ever seen on Roblox. It's straight from Dark Souls. This is the Beast Saga, a game that tests you on a variety of different skills under extreme pressure. Definitely one of the highlights out of the many games on this list by Slash. Blue Coin Challenge is a hardcore remake of the famous Purple Coin Challenge by Nico Rocks, and is pretty brutal to beat without many hours of practice. I think the most well-known badge on this list by far is the one for completing the Tower of Hell, where you have to beat every single stage of Tower of Hell in one session. And if you didn't know already, badge collectors are not very good at Tower of Hell. Alright, let's talk about the absolute hardest badges on the list, the 5 stars. Each of these badges can be defined as the hardest on the list by any player. There's no objective hardest badge on the list, well maybe one, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And everyone's opinion is subjective. I'm not going to talk about every single 5 star, but I'll talk about some of the more interesting and most difficult ones. This is Nicosti, the player with the most badges on the list at the top of the leaderboard. She told me that the most difficult badge she has obtained was from 5 Nights at the Guinness, which requires you to obtain every other badge in the game and beat the Pizza Man entity on max difficulty. This challenge took her 54 hours to complete and is rated 5-star difficulty on the checklist. Also, make sure to check out her channel if you want to see the insanity that goes into beating some of these badges. This is one of the oldest badges on this list. Overachiever of Legend on Taxi Simulator requires you to complete this abysmal car lobby under a strict time limit. Roblox car physics are pretty jank, so beating this is a huge achievement. Out of the Park requires you to beat the hardest stage of Kaizo Roblox 64 without dying once. This game is a hard version of Roblox 64 inspired by Kaizo Mario games. To get this you need a ton of technical knowledge of the game and its mechanics. Here's one that isn't actually on the list yet. Why? The devs are still waiting for someone to post verifiable proof of its completion. Small update, it actually just got verified. Village from RGD. This badge requires you to beat A15 with the joke character, the Fool. This is by far the worst character in the game as he has 1 HP, inverted controls, cannot increase his stats, and can only use swords, and no abilities. Beating normal mode with this character is enough of a challenge, never mind A15. Tower of Cruel Punishment has been spoken about numerous times, so I don't think I really need to say a lot about it. It's the hardest tower in Ito, with a badge. However, it's not actually the hardest lobby on Roblox, but this thing doesn't have a badge, so Cruel Punishment has been able to maintain its reputation. Finally, I want to briefly mention Midnight Illusion 3, which is from Rosu. It's the hardest ribbon badge on Roblox, and according to Reborn, a player with the badge, it takes a year on average to gain a skill required to beat it. Alright, let's talk about the hardest one. Some of you may have seen this video by Venture about hard mode Windows 2000 in a really freaking big house. While this badge is on the list, it is only rated 4 star.
Despite the hardest is only 4 star.
No.
There's an even harder challenge in this game. Meet AMCE from Pen V4, the basically communally agreed hardest non-puzzle or OP badge on the list. This is the 4th installment of a series of AFPR challenges made by the game's creator, however this one was made by Slash instead. The same guy who made the B-Saga and other games on this list like Franfinity. This challenge requires you to reach Route 1000, so surely that means it's easier than Endless 2000, right? Wrong. This version has no spawn limit on enemies, so this gets really painful super fast with all its combos. On top of this, every entity has a further buff that goes beyond hard mode, and if you're still able to live through all of that, there's tons of modifications like invisible walls to throw you off even further. Using extreme technical knowledge of the game and all its entities to even stand a chance of beating this. Never mind the insane amount of luck. Closest run to completion as of today reached room 995, just 5 away from the end. This badge has 0 victors and is by far the most brutal badge I think I've ever seen on this entire platform. However, Slash believes that the badge will be beaten this summer if players are dedicated enough.
There's one more thing.
If you're paying attention, you may have noticed that I said hardest non-puzzle or obby, so that implies there's something harder, right? Introducing Air Nexus, a puzzle so difficult, but also secret and gatekept that I can't even show you any videos of it. It exists within puzzle difficulty chart obby by Doug, also conveniently the owner of UHBL, and has had teams of people trying to solve it for over a year at this point. There are 4 stages to completing this puzzle and only 1 has been completed. Ether is the only one which has been solved and it is a badger. Calico is a puzzle, and Not Ducks is a mix of both. The final one is called Museum and is the last stage obtaining the badge, which is supposedly one of the hardest puzzles ever made. According to Doug, this is her opinion of the hardest badge on this list, although that's kinda biased considering she made it. So what's the hardest? Like I said earlier, it's completely subjective, but these 2 are some of the most common answers by members of the UHBL community. If we're being technical, I guess the hardest badge would be this one right here for obtaining 100 badges on the list. For reference, Costi only has 41 after over a year of the grind. Before I wrap this video up, I also want to give a shout out to another game similar to UHBL. This game is called Badge Points, and rather than focusing on the objective hardest badges, it instead opts for a point system with an increasing number of points for the badge's difficulty. This game is a lot better if you just want to find some cool and underrated games in the process, and the badges are a lot less grindy. I still think both games are excellent and you should definitely check both of them out.